to get straight into the video. Now, this might be a little bit of a hot take. I think Alexander Volkanovski should rematch Ilya Topuria. Not immediately. I think Ilya should fight one contender. Somehow Brian got past Yair, is what it is. But I think Alex should probably fight either Brian after one more win somehow, or Evloev, or even Max Holloway if Max Holloway decides to stay in featherweight, or maybe a Sean O'Malley moving up if there's nothing in the division for him to do. Now the reason why I think Volkanovski should come back in like 8 to 10 months and do a title rematch. Number one, I think everyone can agree that he's earned it, having 6 title defenses, going on 7, which is tied for the record. Makes him one of the arguably greatest of all time. And because of the competition he's faced, Max Holloway 3 times, Byron Ortega, and we saw what Brian just did to Yair. And then Yair, I think there was one other one I can't remember, but Alexander Volkanovski for sure earned another title shot. There's no possible way I could see him fighting another contender. Also, I think it's not a good idea for him to fight a contender. Because if he does come back and he's fighting a contender, odds are it's either going to be a Josh Emmett after another win, Mozavar maybe after another win or a title loss, and maybe Arnold Allen after a win or after a win. And I don't like him in any of these matchups, I'll be honest. I think it's fair to say that watching Volk get KO'd like that cold is very worrying in a Josh Emmett matchup where he's known to make you a corpse inside the octagon, especially at 145. Um, Now, I thought Josh Emmett was going to be a problem if he beat Yair in their interim title fight. He didn't. He ended up losing, and he showed a little bit of low IQ in that moment. But Josh Emmett, I just think is a really bad matchup for Volk. I don't want to see Volk fight Josh Emmett. Um, just because I'm worried, you know. I'm sure it would be a good fight. It'd be a competitive fight, but I'd be really worried. Um, Arnold Allen, I think, still actually has hands. I know a lot of people might call him like the next new pillow hands because he doesn't really get knockouts other than Calvin Cater off that injury. And then I just don't want to see Volk getting finished by the only guy in the UFC who only has decisions and is what is he, like 18-0, something like that? Yeah, I think he's 18-0. Yeah. Yeah, he only has decisions. Boring fighter. I don't want to see him fight Volk. I just don't. Now I will say, um, obviously I'm worried that Volk might get KO'd again in the rematch, but I have a reason why I think it's better for him to do the rematch than to go into these contenders. If he goes back into the contenders, all these guys need to get a belt. And I know Volk is very competitive, and he needs to be, but he's 35 going on 36, I believe. So by the time he fights again, he'll be 36. So he's only getting older, and these guys, some of these guys are really young and hungry. Like Yair's only 30. Brian, I think, is 34. Max is 31, you know? Um, Maybe if he goes against Max Holloway, I think it'd be fair for Max Holloway, Volk, number one contender. But I think he's realistically going to go back and challenge the title again. Um, and I think it's fair, you know? I do like his odds of winning. I don't think it's going to end like it did. And that might be a little bit of me coping that Volkanovski got knocked out. But I really do like his odds because, yes, he got knocked out cold. He's 35, man. He's going to be 36 the next time he fights, basically. But Volk got knocked out cold. Really, really sucks. He's coming off a 2 KO loss streak. He definitely needs time. But he's still tough. Like Volk on a training camp moved up to lightweight to challenge Islam, and yeah, he got hit a few times, he got tagged a few times, but let's not forget Islam is like massive for lightweight. Like this guy belongs in welterweight. He's moving to welterweight for a title shot eventually. You know what I mean? So Islam's a big dude for lightweight, and he was eating it until he showed up short notice, obviously, right? But he made it really competitive with one of the best lightweights of all time, you know? Um, Potentially all time. But then you have, like, oh yeah, Korean Zombie, that was the other one. Um, but yeah, like, Volk is still tough. Like, he's still a dog. He did just get put out twice. I'm aware of that. One was a short notice, 10 days. Um, but he was looking good in round one. Now I will say they do like his team needs to address and be like, look, no more chin up in the air. You know, you can't just pitter patter run out, pitter patter run out. That will never work on Ilya. There, I don't think there'll ever be a fighter to be able to do that to Ilya. You know, um, and if you look at Ilya's record, right? Bryce Mitchell, he tried wrestling uh, with Ilya. Ilya just had a little bit better scrambles, but Bryce was having success. I don't want to see Volkanovski do that with Bryce at all. I don't think Volk shouldn't wrestle unless it's one of those moments in the cage where it's like, okay, somebody needs to shoot a takedown. Like when Leon shot a takedown on Edwards, where it's just like somebody needs to shoot a takedown and get across the distance. Or maybe Ilya's getting greedy, he's throwing overhand rights, you know, um, thinking he might put out the lights, and then you take him down. Because Volk is really good. Like in Volk's fight against Yair, he was really, really good at taking him down. It is Yair. Yair seems to have negative 15 IQ when it comes to takedown defense, but he was able to take down Yair, and he locked his legs with his own legs while doing ground and pound, and that's how he got the TKO. Um, but it was really well. It was a well placed like move. Like you could tell he knows exactly what he's doing. You know, like nobody in that position can do anything better. He was doing the peak. Like your legs are locked by my one foot. You could see Yair try to grab for his own leg to try to get it loose. It didn't work, and that's why he covered up and he was just fucked. You know, um. So I think most likely the plan is not going to be to wrestle with Ilya, but Ilya is shown to do his worst whenever he's trading with you. And yes, Volk did just get put out twice, but I think his best opportunity is to be in the pocket, except that you need to absorb strikes and then trade, like punch for punch with him, rather than pitter patter run away, pitter patter run away. Because the issue with Alex when he was pitter pattering running away is that you could see that Ilya was just waiting for him to get stuck. You know, like as soon as he touched the cage, it was basically you're fucked. And if Alex does the exact same thing in his next fight, he's gonna get put out like he did in this fight. Um, I think it can work, but you need like he needs to do something different. That whole fight he was doing pitter patter run. Like you can't do that for 5 rounds with Ilya. You have to be able to bait Ilya into doing something like throwing an overhand right when he thinks he's like caught you, and then trading with him there. You know, you saw Jai Herbert. Yes, Jai Herbert. You know, this was I think 155. Jai Herbert dropped him pretty bad. Um, but then Jai Herbert got put out cold. But if Jai Herbert can knock him down, I know it's short notice, 155, but I mean Volk isn't like a small guy for featherweight. He is like short, but he's not small by muscle and weight, right? But I think Volk's best chance is to take more of a Islam rematch, or sorry, Islam first fight approach, where like you want to be almost in his range almost at all times, trying to trade, and then pick your time to pitter patter run away, and then get in their trade, pitter patter run away. He needs to change up something. Like, I'm no professional, right? But that's what I would recommend when fighting Ilya. It's clear you can't do the same thing again. Um, but I'm just gonna go into why I think Volk needs the rematch anyways, because we've seen so many great fighters lose on terrible, terrible losing streaks. Obviously, we have Tony Ferguson. That's one example. Then we also have Dominic Reyes, which I believe is still ranked, right? Yeah, Dominic Reyes 14, the guy who did beat John Jones, technically. Um, cheating, But yeah, like we see these guys all the time. They just go on massive skids. You had Tony Ferguson is the obvious one. Anderson Silva, he just went on a loss streak. That's because he was over the hill. But this is like a different age of MMA. Like you see old fighters still fight. And sometimes you just got it and sometimes you don't. I think Volk could be the guy to just have it, but I think Volk should do the rematch. If he loses the rematch, whether it's by KO or a 3-2 decision or whatever the case may be, I think Volk should just retire. Because you might be arguably one of the greatest of all time. Getting your title back definitely still puts you in that argument. However, there's always just going to be, like, there's always the argument now, no, Jose Aldo's better because he had a longer reign. Or, like, he had more title defenses. But Volk, in my opinion, will never get that argument away, you know? He's fought the tougher competition, my personal opinion, and he had to fight through thick and thin to get to the belt. Where Jose Aldo, it was a few fights, he got the belt, and then he held the belt for a long time, and then got knocked out in 20 seconds. You know what I mean? So, it is tough, a tough pill to swallow that Volk could probably no longer get the belt. I do think his best opportunity is to rematch though. If he rematches, he'll be 36, which doesn't sound good, but that's his best opportunity moving forward. He's not going to get younger, and if he fights too soon, his chin is just not going to be the same level. But if he waits, who knows? Maybe his chin might just be fucking godlike. You know what I mean? We've seen people like Edson Barbosa. Like Edson Barbosa's been put out, but in his recent fights, he showcased that he still has a good fucking chin against these young guys. You know, so this could have been an off night, everything like that. But I think the rematch is most likely what's gonna happen. Number one, but number two, I think it's the better outcome. I don't want to see Volk fighting a hungrier contender in order to get his belt again. And if he does lose again, let's just call it quits. You're gonna be 36, maybe 37, but let's be realistic, 36. And at that point, it's just you have nothing else to gain. You tried to move up twice, didn't work. Odds are Islam's gonna still be there. If he's not there, somebody else. Ooh, okay, I'm not gonna get into like who else could be next, but if Islam is still there, it's just there's no way you're getting a third one. You're not getting a third chance within the next 2 years. You know what I mean? So you'll be like 38, maybe 39. It's just not a good idea. Um, I think it would be sick if he got his belt back, and he would definitely be like, let's say he's like 60% people think he's greatest of all time. I think like 80% would put him greatest of all time. And retiring at seventh pound for pound number is pretty fucking good. And you lost to someone who's never lost before. This isn't like you got caught by a champion who's a one-off champion who's gonna sit on the belt for one fight, lose it, and then it's playing fucking handball with the belt. This is like it's tough competition. Nobody's been able to beat him. You know, El Matador. You know, it is what it is. Like Ilya's got a really good record, and I know some people were diminishing. I was diminishing his losses. Like his win over Bryce Mitchell hasn't aged that well. His win over Jai Herbert definitely hasn't aged that well. Ryan Hall also hasn't aged that well because Ryan Hall hasn't fought in a little bit. But it's like it's just it's rough. You know what I mean? But I think he should rematch. He should try to get one more win and then retire. If he does get the belt, hold the belt until you lose it again. You know, I also think it's a worthy mention that Izzy lost his belt to Alex Pereira, got an immediate rematch right after, won the belt, and then lost it again. I think the same thing can happen to Volk, where he loses the belt now. He deserves a rematch if Izzy gets a fucking rematch. And then he holds his belt for maybe one more defense and then loses it. You know what I mean? I think that's realistic. I think that's what should happen. I think Volk is probably the best featherweight to ever walk the earth. I don't think Ilya is going to match that, but I think it's time to retire. That's it.